Good evening. I would like to call to order the Garfield Heights City School District Special Board Meeting Work Session, Monday, April 2021. I would like to call this meeting to order. Can you do roll call,
I can.
please?
Ms. King,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Juby, Mrs. Daniels.
Yes. Meeting call to order. President. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda for today, please? So moved. That was moved by Ms. Morrison and second by Ms. Thomas. Can we have roll call, please, Mrs. Walker?
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes. The next order of business today is,
The presentation.
yes, the presentation from Ms. Hamilton. Ms. Hamilton, if you could address the board, please, and welcome today.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to those who are watching this meeting. I just wanted to provide some updates. We are excited as a district. We are preparing for our second annual Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Week, and that is, again, a value that we hold here in the district. And as part of our equity work, the week will consist of specialized programming targeted towards our students in all buildings, as well as an emphasis on professional development and opportunities for our staff, administration, and also the board. So during these few minutes that I have, I would just like to provide some updates regarding the structure of the professional development programming for DI Week and how that connects to the equity work that we are doing throughout the district, okay? So Wednesday, the 21st of April will be the Professional Development Day. And we are excited as part of our professional development to provide a session on anti-racism education, also sharing the results from our recent equity audit that we conducted. Just to clarify for the listening audience, the equity audit is something that we rolled out this year so that we could begin gathering data to have more details on what are some of the equity gaps in our district. So from the results of the equity audit, we'll be able to have meaningful dialogue in identifying what are some of the root causes or systemic practices that have resulted in these equity gaps, and how can we work together as a collective across our district to provide solutions in helping to reduce or eliminate those equity gaps. This will be facilitated in partnership with our partners from the Educational Service Center, who were partners in us through a grant that allowed us to be able to do this equity audit. In addition to the afternoon sessions will include professional development opportunities that will allow educators to have the opportunity for team building. We understand that with the virtual and moving back into the hybrid, many of our educators have not necessarily had the chance to interact. And so we will have those team building activities take place in the afternoon, the day of the professional development opportunities around the building in an outdoor setting. That includes a session on mindfulness that's being facilitated, which will focus on a 3-part workshop that includes individual practices for mindfulness and meditation, physical integration of these practices through breathing and movement, and guidance for practicing mindfulness in interpersonal connections and conversations. So again, tools that our educators can use for their self-care, but also to integrate into their classroom practices. Next, we will have a drum circle, and the theme is marching in the same rhythm. And the purpose of that is a different abstract collective way for us to engage in meaningful conversation with the importance of being in sync. So all of this follows suit in our theme of having a district-wide understanding of what do we mean when we actually say diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the culmination of this day, everyone should be able to articulate what we mean when we talk about integrating equitable practices as a district. And last but not least, we are also including our partners from Applewood that will be leading our staff in some interventions around mental health and identifying issues that may occur in the classroom setting and interventions on how to deal with those issues using mental health methods, using methods to, improve overall mental health outcomes for our students. So that in essence is an overview of our professional development opportunities. And again, a calendar will be provided to you all because as members of the board, you are being invited to participate in these sessions. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Can you give me the time for the morning sessions and then the afternoon sessions? Like, is it different sessions at each building?
Yes.
Different drum circles? If you kind of help with the logistics so we can plan.
Absolutely. So the first part of our day will start from 8 a.m. to 10:45. Although all educators and staff are reporting to the buildings that day, it will be virtual, okay? So during that time, they will be watching the virtual presentation via Zoom. They'll have a brief break, and then we will reconvene the plenary session virtually at large, in which individuals will be assigned to different breakout rooms. So again, that will last to 10:45. There'll be a break, and then the first two buildings that are on track A, they will start off with lunch at 11 a.m. And following lunch, the remainder of the team building activities will take place after that, culminating at 3:30 p.m. For the other three buildings that are not on, that are on the opposite track, they will start off with staggered times assigned for different interventions. So we have, for example, where William Foster and Elmwood are starting off at lunch at 11 a.m. and then going to the other activities. Maple Leaf, the middle school and high school will start off with their other activities and then break for lunch at 12, from 12 to 12:50, and then they will culminate their afternoon with team building activities. So we have a staggered schedule that will be available to you all. And if you should choose to participate in the afternoon session as well, we can plug you into whatever building you need to be assigned to. Also, I would like to mention for that morning session, you will have the opportunity to be assigned to breakout groups with the different building level staff. So we thought that that would be good because we understand, especially from feedback that Ms. King gave during the recent equity retreat, to provide the opportunity for the board to engage in that co-facilitated session with a member of our equity action team so that you can engage with the staff so that they can meet you. You can share a snippet with them about what we're doing regarding equity and then you go into the dialogue. Whereas the administrators, including Mr. Hankey and his team, will be in a separate breakout session with our board equity consultant, Deborah Keys, and she would be facilitating the dialogue from a different perspective with our administrators. We wanted to keep those sessions separate because I understand that when it comes sometimes to the comfort level of being able to share openly, this hasn't necessarily been an opportunity that has been a normal practice or afforded to our educators and support staff. So this gives an opportunity for you to be able to have that interaction with them and just to hear feedback firsthand of some of the great ideas that they have, but also some of the challenges that they have. Does that clarify, or does anyone have any additional questions?
Okay. Any other questions? I just asked that as soon as we get the schedule, if my fellow board members can just let me know what sessions you attend to participate in, and then I can make sure I communicate that with Mr. Hankey so he'll know how to accommodate and know where the board is situated throughout the day. So do you know when we will have that schedule? Because this is next week.
Yes, so the itinerary, I'm working with Ms. Wilson. We just resumed back from spring break. So we're hoping to have that finalized by tomorrow and sent out no later than Wednesday this week so that everyone can kind of prepare accordingly.
Okay. And even if it's by our next board meeting on Monday, I think that'd be sufficient for the board to be able to see where they can arrange this in their schedule. I just encourage, all of us throughout the day, even if it's the virtual piece, to kind of pop in and support the districts in these efforts during this DEI week. The only other thing I have is if you could just share some of the activities that we're doing with the students
Absolutely.
for this week, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Since again, we have an exciting week planned. So Monday will be our kickoff, and we'll be hosting a virtual dialogue with refugee students from CMSD. That went over really well. It gives our scholars the opportunity to apply a global mindset in terms of how they interact with people and understanding the stories of individuals who have come to this country for better opportunities. And so that will take place on Monday and Thursday because we want to accommodate for students in groups A and B due to the testing schedule. Also on the elementary level, the students will kick off conversations about race based on the PBS learning standards that introduce concepts of race in a way that is developmentally and age appropriate for those students, followed by an activity called Beautiful Me, in which it's a mirror and they have to give the image of themselves and why they think they're beautiful. Again, reinforcing positive self-messaging. Tuesday,
Who's facilitating the conversation about race?
it will be co-facilitated by our Mosaic student group here at the Garfield Heights High School, and also the refugee student contact, who is Mayel and Jamba from the CMSD school district. And myself and Ms. Wilson will be a part of that as well. Tuesday, we have our DEI virtual game night, which will follow suit similar to our virtual night out that we had during Black History Month. The theme is around inclusion. So it'll be an interactive time for families to engage in learning about inclusive terms and terms that we use when we refer to people with learning differences and understanding what those terms mean. And then after that brief presentation, they will have the opportunity to engage in a game via Kahoot to reinforce that messaging around those equity terms. Also, on the elementary school level, they'll start doing what we're calling their Unity link. And that's just simply links that they're going to create and write special messages of what DEI means to them that we can then showcase around our building. And I apologize because I neglected to say the theme for the week is Unity, UNITY, uniting the neighborhood intentionally through you. So in other words, making the connection that we all have a role to play as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion in our community. For Wednesday, because that is an asynchronous day, we are encouraging our educators to encourage the students to participate in the lessons around inclusion that will be uploaded in Google Classroom. We are working with Ms. Norris from the high school, who is putting together a mini sign language class so that the students can watch videos and that they can work on worksheets showing simple sign language greetings. And again, we wanted to make sure that we were touching on the Inclusion Day, as well as the Equity and Action Day, which I described for professional development. For Thursday, again, mirroring the Monday session and also encouraging our teachers to engage in dialogues around racial justice based on the learning plans that I created from Teaching for Justice, which are in alignment with what we refer to as social justice learning standards. So the teachers in different TBTs will be required to pick out whatever subject based on the lesson plans. They have guided questions and just a simple conversation with students about these topics and themes. Thursday evening will be our family night out. We will do that by RSVP to accommodate for social distancing guidelines. It will be an evening full of fun, different cultural activities that will feature performances for some of our high school extracurricular groups, as well as African drumming, sensory art, again, and being inclusive to make sure that everyone can participate. And we're working on also confirming a partnership with the local nonprofit to come in and do some inclusive dance instruction as well. We also have reached out to Cuyahoga County Library, our local branch, that will be outdoors to share information about books in their summer literacy programming. And they'll also be available to register those in the district that don't have library cards to sign up for library cards at that night. So again, we're trying to tie in the literacy requirements for Title And then Friday is Blue and Gold Day, so we want to, again, keeping in that theme of inclusion, encourage everyone in our district to wear blue and gold, and that will be the culmination of our week.
Thank you. This is really good. You guys did a wonderful job planning this so far. I'm really excited about this. It's truly an expansion from last year, and thank you so much.
Thank
Is there
you.
any questions? I do have one question. Could you repeat for me what UNITY stands for? Uniting Neighbors?
Okay.
Something through
Uniting the neighborhood intentionally through you, meaning
You
the
or
person, you, Y-O-U.
Oh, through you.
And we also have a great video that was produced by Mr. Fruit with some representatives in our district around the theme of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That'll be available for us to share with you, the board, and if you'd like, you can also incorporate that with your at your board meeting to show to the public as well.
Is it on YouTube?
So the link was just released. It is on YouTube. I just got the link about an hour ago, but we're representing the diversity across our district with all types of families and those that represent our district, sharing messages around the theme of what DEI means to them and the role that they play.
And this Friday night out, is this going to be outdoors or indoors?
Thursday night out, it will be outdoors. We're hoping to also, we want to use this outdoor space that we have as a resource in all of our buildings as much as possible. So we're hoping that the weather will be nice the way that it has been so far in this unseasonably warm April, where we can really utilize the green spaces located in our around here in the high school for that Thursday night. So our football field and different areas, we may have to adjust it, but if we do use any indoor space, it will probably be our gym because that's the largest space where we can have crowds and minimal crowds and social distance properly.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I do have a question about the lessons on racial justice that we be encouraging our teachers to have. Have we offered additional support for those lessons? Like, if someone has a question, do they know that they can reach out to you with that question, or if they get into a situation where they need some assistance, they know what to do in those situations if those conversations do get sensitive.
So thank you for that comment. So the themes that were introduced around racial justice, they are themes that are presented at a comfort level in which it would not present an issue to address questions. And so themes around inclusion, disability, and there are a couple of race-related things. With our equity action team members, who are some of our educators, they will be a part of encouraging and having those conversations with the TBT. I will be meeting with those point people prior to them meeting with their TBT so that they can understand what they need to communicate. As always, as I communicated to all of our teachers across the district through our trainings that we've done so far, that I have an open door policy, feel free to reach out to me. And some have, especially in anticipating outcomes from the trial and things are going, how to have those difficult conversations. But for the purpose of DEI Week, it's meaningful dialogue, but not heavy dialogue. And the way that it's structured, if you visit learningforjustice.org, teachingforjustice.org, the lesson plans are in a format that teachers are used to having because of their planning. And so it's very simple where they can pick out the thing that they're most comfortable with, and then it will have just guided, open-ended questions. The purpose is really for this to be a space for them to begin practicing creating space for students, but not necessarily from a perspective of knowing all the answers, right? But just being able to put out open-ended questions and allowing the students to converse with each other around these things. So your point is very well taken, Ms. Thomas. I would never want to put educators in a position where they feel uncomfortable or unprepared. But in a simplified way that the lesson plan is mapped out, it should be okay with everyone's comfort level because it's like in accordance with how they would do lessons for their regular lesson plan.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Well, thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you at the PD day if you're able to make it.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thank
Ms.
you.
Sanders. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next item on our agenda is the discussion on the student data coach. Mr. Henry.
Thanks, President Daniels. One of the things I'd like to bring to the Board of Education is the need for a new administrative position surrounding student data. I would like this to be an administrative level position where you're not just analyzing data yourself, but you're also acting as almost as an instructional leader to myself, principals, and teachers. We're looking for someone to analyze and prepare reports that are simple enough that anyone can understand in the community in terms of what's going on with student data. But also, you want to be able to dig deep into the student data to drive instruction. At this point, what we're doing with Mr. Patton and Mrs. Reisland is researching job descriptions. Specifically, we're looking at some local districts and also some national districts for this. In short, you want someone who is a district leader, a supporter of schools, and a catalyst for change, someone who facilitates learning, someone who's a resource provider for teachers if they have questions, and for administrators. And in addition to being a data coach, really being an instructional coach to drive and change instruction. What I'd like to, and obviously, I first of all welcome questions from the board, but timeline-wise, I'd like to have a job description approved at the May meeting, and I'd then like to, if the board is amenable to it and does approve it at the May meeting, I'd like to post for it. And then I'd like, and I'd also like, we're also going to take a look at the organizational chart to see where, in fact, this person would fit in terms of reporting in central office. In short, we have a wealth of data in this district, and having someone who's able to coalesce it, analyze it, and present it to various stakeholders and groups effectively and efficiently is going to be important to bring this school district to the next level. And I believe that student achievement will be affected positively if we do, in fact, we are in fact able to bring this position on board in the school district. You're looking at a situation, especially with our new strategic plan, where we need to be a very data-driven district. And I truly believe that we're not going to be able to accomplish this without someone really focusing on the data, on each of the pillars. So, you're looking at everything from, your not run of the mill, the data you may think of when you think of the school district, like state assessment data. Then you can drill down to math data. Then you can drill down to social emotional learning data. Also, this person will be able to find tools, analytic tools, where we'll be able to measure things that you may not think are measurable, but they are. And to provide solutions for us, to help us, and to also help us monitor the strategic plan as it goes through the years. I can't, overestimate the importance of data in my practice. And sometimes I think one of the frustrations that I feel is that we don't have enough time to organize, quantify, and spell and communicate. So I think that's what I'd like to. That's kind of my. That is my plan. But I'm certainly open to discussion and to hear the board's thoughts on this proposal.
I do have a question. Are we looking at a full-time
Yes.
individual for this?
Yes, I'm looking into it. I would like this to be an administrative position. So I want someone that has an administrative license to have this, because that also gives them cross training and what principals and what central office personnel do. but you're also looking for someone with relatively specific skill set and background in data analysis and interpretation. I mean, our administrators range in contract from 210 to, well, really 230, but except for Mr. Patton and I, Mr. Sluka, we're in your long contract. We're not looking for that. We're looking for something in that range. So to be on board with this.
I have one thing for you.
Go ahead, Mr. Patton.
So the district in the state of Ohio is going to OTES 2.0. OTES 2.0 is created by Mr. Hickey. Myself and several central office administrators have already completed, and our building administrators are doing it right now. What the component of OTES 2.0 focuses heavily around data pieces, and this data person will also help support that role in the new teacher evaluation system. Generally, right now, our teachers, when they're evaluated, they have just a few touches throughout the year. Next year, it changes. It is an ongoing system where the principals will be meeting with the teachers throughout the entire year, at least a minimum of 5 touches. So they're talking about data, and it has to be 2 centralized pieces of data. One is value-added data based on student test results. The other is we're still working through, but as we kind of talked about, we talked about math data as a real core component of what we're doing as a district, and that would be another one. We're still working through those details. And we'll have more things in place as we start the next school year. But that is going to be a complete shift in what we do in education, and that data piece has to be the forefront, and the data person will help drive that to ensure not only the support of the central office, but what's really important happening in the teachers in the classroom, and ultimately what the best result is happening within the classroom.
And you know, one of our pillars, as Ms. Hamilton just presented, has to do with equity. And data can very much help you make a more equitable school and have more equitable educational offerings for students on a number of levels, from targeted assistance and intervention to outcomes, analyzing outcomes, especially at the secondary level at AP and honors courses, and also looking at demographic data and how what our practices may or may not be doing to help all students. That's going to be important. Districts that have deployed this have they've done it effectively, have seen a base level of an improvement of the state report card as well, which at its most basic, and I have a lot of thoughts about state testing, but that's the most basic. You know, unfortunately, that's how we're grading against other districts. So that's also.
I think it's a great opportunity for us to take our district to the next level. You can't do anything without data, and data should drive instruction. So being able to take the map data and really drill down to see, you know, in math specifically where that student is lacking, and be able to support the teacher, as you said, Mr. Hickey, finding those resources to bring in. I also see it being very helpful in the RTI process, and looking at the data and being able to provide strategies and supports for that student sooner, so that, you know, we aren't getting to a tier 3, that we are getting those children that are in tier 1, tier 2 back to tier 1. So I really think that this would be a crucial and important role here at the district. I've had in previous work experiences in education, we've had data pages, and the information that you can get with the right person will be phenomenal. It'll be an asset to our teachers and our scholars.
Thank you.
Who currently analyzes our data?
Well, that's the problem. It's decentralized at this Thomas. You have EMIS, you have building principals, you have me. As many of you know, my time is a little limited. So sometimes that's where the frustration I think comes in, is we have all this data and we have different people analyzing. Someone that really coalesce this and give us a bigger picture. That's one piece of it, I think, this sounds, where we can look at things on, superintendent, they can look at people at a more 500-foot level about what's going on across the spectrum, which I think is good. Additionally, Mrs. Saxton does a lot of our data analysis in terms of BLT and DLT and what needs assessment. So almost every department touches it. And so they're very good about working in silos, but it's hard with the amount of information come up with, a more broad perspective.
It would be great to have a dashboard.
Yep.
So that, at a glance, especially for, yourself and the other cabinet members, having at a glance, the demographics, the map, student growth data, on a dashboard.
Yes,
And this person can help facilitate that.
yes.
Do our other neighboring districts have data coaches?
Well,
Do you know of?
my favorite example, and although it's not analogous in terms of the amount of student population, but demographically, I think we're relatively similar to Warrensville Heights City Schools. Warrensville Heights City Schools, talking to Dr. Jolly, one of the crucial components to him being the only district in Ohio on 612 to go from an F2 to C was the data analyst. And he was the first person I reached out to waiting on to give me his job description.
Yeah, I was actually at Capitol Conference where he discussed how they were able to make that, and it was completely data driven, most definitely. I guess my other question would be, is this a long-term position that we need in the district, or is this something that can be handled through a consultant, or do PSC provide these type of services and resources to districts?
They do, however, where we are right now, I believe it's a sustainable long-term position. I think that they can work in concert with PSC consultancy. There are some very good data analysts in PSC. The one, if you do choose to, if you're able to participate next week, Mr. McCory, who led the equity audit throughout the county, is very, very good at things like this. So I really believe that the district our size, although we have 5 buildings, we have 3,500 children attending our schools. It's going to be very helpful to have this person where it's not a consultancy.
And do you guys know about how much the salary runs for this type of position? Since it's going to be an administrative level position.
Broadly, based off of surrounding districts, and what we currently have in compensation for our administrators, depending on education level and also experience, you're looking at anywhere between approximately $70,000 to $200,000. I know that's a big range, but it really is dependent. I don't want to
We afford it all.
Well, Mr. Slade,
What you need and what you can afford is two different things.
Well, I know, Mr.
So that's the
Daniels.
question.
The big thing is, I think there's two components to the affordability. One is the intrinsic value to the district on being able to do data-driven analysis and to raise up not only test scores, but to have that information available at a moment's notice. The other thing too is I think that it's perfectly fine if the governor's student success and wellness funding would be able to cover this if it gets into the budget, and of which if we're getting an increase for that. So I can see that increase would be covering the first couple of years. And I guess maybe if it covers for 2 years, that's a 2-year period of evaluation on whether this really works or doesn't.
Yep.
And then if it really works, then it pays for itself moving forward and we make it a priority, but it is part of the strategic plan. So it probably will be a priority in the coming years, but we can't, I think the cost benefits outweigh the cost right now. We're just.
Thank you. I just had to ask that
No,
question. 'Cause I
absolutely.
wasn't sure
Yes,
really.
yeah.
It doesn't do us any good to have data and we're not doing anything with it. And any opportunities, our goal with the strategic plan and the district goal overall is to ensure student success and achievement. And so if we have data that could help drive some of those things that we need for our students and identify how to improve student success and achievement, I think that it's an investment that's worth taking for our students' achievement. But like I said before, what we need and what we can afford sometimes is two different things. So that's why I wanted to ask if we can afford it right now. And if not, just even what was the plan to get us to that point where we could, or what was our other options? Because apparently this is a gap in the district.
Yeah, well, I think it's decentralized, and so it's not fully realized. Is the issue.
Do anybody have any other questions? And so we can expect, possibly you're looking at, you guys are working on getting the job description in hopes to having it approved on our main.
Yes. If it sounds like the board's looking at this, so I work with Mr. Patton and my cabinet to develop a strong job description for it, because that's going to be very important. Those things will drive the candidates we get, and also the what our expectations are.
If there's not anything else, we are we going into executive session? Yes, so, if there's not anything else, can I have a motion to go into executive session this evening for the purposes of discussing personnel matters
And legal matters.
and legal matters? Madam President, I make a recommendation that we enter into executive session at 7:36 to discuss personnel and legal matters. And can I have a second, please? Second. That was moved by Ms. King, Mr. Sluka, and second by Ms. Morrison. Can we have a roll call?
King?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I would like the records to show that we're entering executive session, Mr. Sluka, at 7:21 p.m. The next item on our agenda this evening is the tentative agenda review for our April 19th regular board meeting. That all the board members get an opportunity to review the agenda and exhibits that were posted on our board docs. And I know that Mr. Sluka wanted to share some information with us relative to the tentative agenda.
Right, I have a few items on there. First one is under tax rates, and let me briefly explain what that is. That Garfield Heights City Schools has 2 bond issues and 3 emergency levies, a permanent improvement levy, and a contingency levy. The county fiscal officer, through their budget commission, needs to put a tax rate in based on our valuation to ensure that we are collecting on those levies. Continuing levy is what it is. It's based on a millage rate that was passed a long time ago, back in the 70s. But the emergency levies and the 2 bond issues, their millage rates fluctuates based on the valuation, because the 3 emergency levies are based on a dollar amount being collected, not a millage amount. So they need to assess the correct millage, the tax rate, to ensure that we are collecting what that voted dollar amount was.
So that's why that's on there. So they need, we're telling them, yes, this is the millage as you determined to get to that dollar amount for those 3 levies. So we are saying we're going to approve that, and then they can start assessing that and collecting. The bond issues are separate. Each year, the bond coming due, we call it the bond and interest, fluctuates each year. So it could be a little higher, it could be a little lower, depending on the amortization schedule for the paying off of those bonds. So what we do back in, and if you remember, we did the tax budget back in January, and I tell the county, this is what we're going to need to pay off this bond for this year. They go back to the valuation, and then they say, okay, you're going to need this millage to pay off what's coming due, the obligation for that year. So that's also on that tax rate resolution. So then they calculate all that out, send it back out to the school districts and said, for Ohio law, you need to approve the tax rate resolution, giving us the authority to go back out and assess those taxes to collect. That's what the tax rate resolution is. So that won't start until we call it collection year 2022 based on calendar year 2021, because we're always paying after the fact. So that's what that tax rate resolution is. The next thing is that you're going to see a resolution to amend appropriations. Throughout the year, certain circumstances take place that we need to amend appropriations on. Back in September, we did the original appropriation measure. So there are times when we'll get more money in, or we need additional items, and Ohio law says we cannot spend any money unless it has been appropriated, 5705, 41B and D. So the original appropriation, while at the time was our best estimate of what we need, there are certain funds we might get more money in, like the building fund when we borrowed, or some of the grant monies. Before we can spend them, we need to amend their appropriation to meet the law. Now, there are some funds that what I'll do at the end of the year, because it fluctuates, I might do a mass one. I'll do a mass one at the end of the year. But if I know right now that we're in a negative, that's why I'm doing it in April, because I need to increase it now, because I need to spend more and see where we're at. So that's where you see that resolution for that. And then the last thing on the agenda item was the bus bids. The Ohio Schools Council goes out and does all the legwork for bus bidding, because Ohio Revised Code says we must bid buses. So if they go out and do all the legwork for the bus bidding, that meets the legal level of requirements for going out and doing all that. Now I put in there that we might be buying 2 buses, 3 buses. Doesn't mean we have to buy any buses, but if we need the buses, because we were having some issues with inspection and the age of our buses, all the bidding requirements were already done for us. So all we need to do is just go and deal with whoever the return bid. If this is the bus we want, and they've already submitted their bids, we just go right to that vendor and buy the bus. So that meets our legal obligation of the bidding requirements for buses going through this program. So it's kind of being proactive. Doesn't mean we're obligated to buy the buses, but it's just being proactive if we need to. And I think we're going to need to in the coming year, because some of these buses are hanging on by a thread, and we've been getting by. But I think the state highway patrol is getting a little bit more stringent. I'm hoping that there's some grants out there we're going to be looking for, and I'm hoping as part of this budget for education, there's some money in there for bus purchases, because every district is hurting for buses. So that those are the 3 big items I have on the agenda.
I had a question, I would guess, and clarification. I believe it's on the millage. It
Yep.
came in lower, the
Yes.
2, so that is not good for us
Millage is good for us if it's lower.
if it's lower.
If it's lower,
Okay.
it's good for us. If it's high, if
And
it's
that's what I
lower,
wanted to,
I mean, that means we're collecting the city dollar amount. Taxpayer, homeowners paying a little bit less.
they're paying a little bit less. Yes, I got that part, but I didn't know how that is.
Yeah, so if it's lower, we're collecting what we need to collect. It's just the taxpayer obligation is a little bit lower. And that means our valuation is slightly increasing there. Now, depending on everything else being equal, I mean, villages, it's just a small amount. They might see maybe a $5 or $10 savings, some of the public. Some of them might not see anything because their house values, if they bought a house, are higher and they did something. So it's all relative. But overall, we want to see the millage rate drop.
Okay.
Lower is better, like golf.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I do have, a question and even a suggestion. Upon the presentations, we have roses for teachers this. And is there any other presentations we can expect at this board meeting?
No, and it was strategic, because it would be a lengthy one. President Dales, I'm super pleased to reintroduce this back in person. We'll be having the board meeting in the cafeteria to allow for social distancing. And frankly, that's where it's always held anyway. We'll be able to really have our first board meeting back in the school proper. I mean, we're having it now, but I mean, with people there. We think we know we can do it safely. Sanitizing guidelines.
So we'll have additional staff here to support with, like, are we doing temperature taking? How does that process happen?
We'll have them go through thermal imager and we can take temperatures.
Okay. Since that is our DEI week, would it take up too much time for us to share that video that Yolanda had mentioned?
No, we can share it. It's 3 minutes.
Okay, I think that do you guys agree that may be appropriate for this week? And I kind of personally, it's Autism Awareness Week in the district, and I was wondering, we have a student in the district, Caleb MacArthur, that has been with the district from preschool, and he's graduating this year. He's one of our students that has autism, and he's been a lifelonger. And I was wondering if we possibly can have Caleb come to our meeting. I asked his mom if he was capable to maybe lead the district in the pledge allegiance on our board meeting next Monday, just to honor one of our students that has been through our district, is graduating this school year with autism, just to kind of honor Autism Awareness Month. So I just kind of wanted to ask, is that possible? And if the board would be amenable to having our student come and lead us with the pledge on that day.
Certainly possible.
I just kind of want to, and this is just highlights the strength of our district, especially with our special needs students. We have a student that's graduating, and that was with our district ever since pre-K, and the district has supported him to graduation. So I think that's absolutely to be celebrated, and even just to highlight the great things that our district does with our special education students.
Sounds fantastic.
And it's DEI week, right?
Yep.
So,
It all works out well.
so it all works out well. I don't have any other questions about the agenda. Just want to thank the board members for coming out on Saturday for our session. It was really good. I hope you guys took away some really good things. Before I let Ashley make her statement, I do have one more question. I noticed on social media, we have a date for graduation.
We do.
And
To make a big announcement, President Diaz, if you like it.
yeah, did the other board members know the date yet? Yeah, I'm seeing it on social. I'm like,
We got confirmation, total confirmation today, that our seniors were going to have the opportunity to graduate out of Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in downtown. We are super excited about this. It's gonna look a little different than although last year was way different, but it's gonna look a little different than, because of COVID restrictions about who can be on the floor. I'm also super excited to announce, because of the size of the arena, we are still able to offer each graduating senior 5 tickets, which was the idea behind it. We are still working out some surprises and logistics with multimedia, so stay tuned.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Thomas?
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss briefly the legislative committee that we have been discussing. I know Chris and I have had a few meetings since our last meeting about what we want that committee to look like as a board. So we have 2 options. The first option is for the legislative committee to be a board committee. And the second option is for the legislative committee to be a superintendent's committee. One of those options offer a lot of privacy, and the other option offers public participation. Any thoughts?
Ms. Thomas, may I add on?
Absolutely,
Okay.
please.
Okay, so, and I'd like to thank Katie Capers from Russell and English for taking the time to meet with us, because she actually does do the work. She really laid it out very succinctly, the differences in these 2 frameworks. One is a public meeting, just like this meeting, which is applicable to sunshine laws, has minutes taken, is a very official meeting. Okay, and it's a standing board committee. Okay, obviously the benefit to that is that you have an opportunity for the community at large to hear a lot of legislative updates. A superintendent's committee or task force is a committee that I would run, which is not technically an open meeting. You could also have, I believe, and I want to talk to Mr. Johnson about this, run both types of frameworks concurrently, or like that. So as Ms. Thomas said, I think we'd like to hear the board's thoughts, right? About what kind of framework that you'd like to see.
I think personally, legislatively, we really need to start engaging the community, because that's where kind of we can get them to push and put a voice to some things that we need done. I mean, we can make some recommendations, we can move on some things legislatively. The board can make recommendations and speak and stuff, but if we don't have the community engagement backing us and holding their elected officials accountable, just our one voice, it can be have such a larger movement with the community buy-in and support. And it can kind of align with our strategic plan with increasing community and civic engagement with our district. So, but then I also like the concurrent plan, possibly where the superintendent is kind of making some recommendations to, especially legislatively, if we could get some community members to align with the district and support us, and the things that we're making push and taking stands on, that's where the power is at, the voters. When we're talking legislatively, we're just one voice and we can kind of make a move, but when we have voters in the community sitting there, and what do they want, even from us as a Board of Education, we are their elected officials. So I think having a voice, I kind of like that ideal, especially when we're talking about legislative matters.
Other thoughts from the board?
Is there a way to, if it was a superintendent committee or task force, is there a way to do something similar to what you do now in terms of having a town hall or, once a quarter, there's an update to the community and feedback from the community, so that it's not every meeting is
The whole,
every,
very
right,
formal meeting.
because then you could, we could work with Mr. Fruits, Mr. Cooks, to really break down what's happening legislatively So I'm gonna say, use myself as an example, so as a lay, so I can understand it. So that we're kind of getting the best of both worlds, because sometimes it may be just nitty gritty legislation that we're trying to tear apart and figure out, so.
I'd like to offer this caveat as well, considering also educating the city liaison. This would focus on state legislative issues. That's really where the quote unquote rubber meets the road in terms of education, effect on education. So, and it can get complex. And I think the more we, I think, we can do that. We can have the full committee, and go from there. Morrison, do you have any thoughts or?
I like the concurrent one too. And I definitely, if you're going to choose one, I'd really like to get the public involved.
Well, Ms. Thomas, are you amenable to me contacting you? Maybe we can get a meeting with legal counsel about making sure we establish the committee appropriately and legally. And then we can come back to the Board of Education with that framework. Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you,
If I could piggyback, can I piggyback on that?
Yes.
Because I was actually, after Ms. Thomas, I was gonna ask about the finance committee, which we need to meet and establish, and I was going to recommend we meet before the board meeting on Monday at 5 o'clock to convene that committee and talk about the framework, what it's going to look like, how we're gonna do it, and it's gonna follow probably the same path as a legislative committee. So we need to maybe run those like I'm not going to say concurrent, but run those in the same manner so we have consistency between all our committees.
Yes.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to call that committee together for 5 o'clock on Monday before the board meeting to discuss, just exactly how we want to set this up. We should have more answers now, because I was thinking there's two rules of thought for a board committee. One is, and part of my goal was to get a community finance committee. There's two rules of thought. And Mr. Hankey, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's a board committee, you need to publish at your meeting. Public's allowed to attend. They don't participate, they just listen in. And then you need to take minutes and publish those minutes for the next meeting. I did that with, I called it the FACT committee back in the day with the financial activities and communication team. But I had members of the public, I had members of the business community that were on that. We did the same thing. When we met as a community, published, and it took minutes, published those, and then met once a month. I mean, and it can be done both ways. So that's something I think that we need to address in our first finance committee, just where we want to go with how we want to address the structure of that committee too. That works. So I will send that notice out for 5 o'clock. And I like doing these right before a board meeting because you're already here. It's not a separate time. And then you could probably take what we discussed in that committee, you could take it out for your report. That we just met at the finance committee and here's what we talked about. And it's a perfect time to get that going with the state budget in the process of being finalized and we'll have more information.
Sounds good to me. Thank you guys for the update on the committee work. And I know in the superintendent's report from last week, you guys would have seen that there was an notation that we did have a strategic plan to this meeting a couple weeks ago. Is there anything else this evening? Any other matters that we need to discuss? If there is no other matters on the floor, any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
We can have a block for next week to discuss finance committee.
Yeah, for the committee
The
members.
committee members. Yes.
Right, just for the committee members. Yep. That would be Ms. Morrison and Ms. Daniels. Usually we include superintendent and myself and superintendent. That committee.
Thank you. And do we have plans? I know we didn't do it last year because of COVID, but do you have a plan on doing that?
Yeah, I would
The
love to
finance
do it.
meeting that you normally do?
Absolutely. As soon as we get the state budget up and running, I would love to do it's not state of schools, but a finance update, either like video or live or something. I mean, even like a town hall type of things, but that's something I need to coordinate with Mr. Hankey on how we talk to him. But yeah, as we get to the final, the numbers, it's usually the update with the forecast, the state budget, how it's being affected, our school district and what we're looking at. We can, update the ESSER funds, update success and wellness, yes, but I'd like to probably do something for, schools out. But that's something that Mr. Hankey and I need to discuss and talk about timeline.
I most definitely would like to see it return. Thank you. If there's not anything else, can I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting? Oh, announcement is our next board meeting. Our next board meeting, which is a regular school board meeting, is on Monday, April 19th at 6 p.m. It will be broadcast on our YouTube page. If there's any public comments, those can be made at the time of the meeting, and we will have that information for the public. With that being said, yes, and that meeting will include our Roses for Teachers, which is a very important commemoration that our district do every year to honor the teachers in our district that made impact on some of our scholars. So I'm most definitely looking forward to being able to honor our teachers next Monday. With that being said, can I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting at 7:45 p.m.? Mr. Sluka, that was moved by Ms. King and second by Ms. Thomas. Can I have roll call, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Meeting adjourned.